kunjavihari. Gopijana vallabha girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjavihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjavihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjavihari. Javihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjavihari. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Ashtottara Shishibad. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Samstapakacharya. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories, all glories, all glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naranchaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jaya Mudhiraye Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. So this morning we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 14, titled The Disappearance of Lord Krishna, text 39 and 40. 39 does not, just 39 has a very small purport, and 40 has a relatively bigger purport. So the verse that I've been asked to speak on is 40 or 39 and 40, let's say. Okay. Text 39. I'll just read the text translation and purport, and then we'll read the text on the board. 40. Text 39. Kaccit te namayam tata brashta teja vibhasi me alabdamano vajñātaha kim va tata chiroshitaha. Translation. My brother Arjuna, please tell me whether your health is all right. You appear to have lost your bodily luster. Is this due to others disrespecting, neglecting you because of your long stay at Dwaraka? Purport. From all angles of vision, the Maharaj inquired from Arjuna about the welfare of Dwaraka, but he concluded at last that as long as Lord Sri Krishna himself was there, nothing inauspicious could happen. But at the same time, Arjuna appeared to be bereft of his bodily luster, and thus the king inquired of his personal welfare and asked so many vital questions. Text 40. Kaccin nābhihato bhāvaiḥ śabdādibhir amaṅgalaiḥ dattam uktam arthibhya āśayā pratiśrutam kaccin nābhihato bhāvaiḥ śabdādibhir amaṅgalaiḥ dattam uktam arthibhya āśayā pratiśrutam kaccin nābhihato bhāvaiḥ śabdādibhir amaṅgalaiḥ dattam uktam arthibhya āśayā pratiśrutam kaccin nābhihato bhāvaiḥ śabdādibhir amaṅgalaiḥ dattam uktam arthibhya āśayā pratiśrutam. Śabdādibhir amaṅgalaiḥ dattam uktam arthibhya āśayā pratiśrutam kaccin nābhihato bhāvaiḥ śabdādibhir amaṅgalaiḥ dattam uktam arthibhya āśayā pratiśrutam nābhihato bhāvaiḥ śabdādibhir amaṅgalaiḥ dattam uktam arthibhya āśayā pratiśrutam. Matajis. Okay. Kaccit, whether, na, could not, abhihataḥ, addressed by, abhāvaiḥ, unfriendly, śabda-ādibhiḥ, by sounds, amaṅgalaiḥ, inauspicious, na, did not, dattam, given charity, uktam, is said, arthibhya, unto one who asked, āśayā, with hope, what, pratiśrutam, promised to be paid. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Translation. Has someone addressed you with unfriendly words or threatened you? Could you not give charity to one who asked, or could you not keep your promise to someone? Purport. A kshatriya or a rich man is sometimes visited by persons who are in need of money. When they are asked for a donation, it is the duty of the possessor of wealth to give in charity in consideration of the person, place and time. If a kshatriya or a rich man fails to comply with this obligation, he must be very sorry for this discrepancy. Similarly, one should not fail to keep his promise to give in charity. These discrepancies are sometimes causes of despondency, and thus failing, a person becomes subjected to criticism, which might also be the cause of Arjuna's plight. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport to Canto 1, Chapter 14, in the matter of the disappearance of Lord Krishna, texts 39 and 40. Om Ajnanatimmirandasya Gyananjana Shlakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Caitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakadamahyam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadagamanam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savdutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Jayapataka Swaminiti Namine Nama Acharya Padaya Nitaikrapa Pradayine Gaurakata Dhamadaya Nagaragramatarine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Gopi Paranadhanadase Iti Namine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyatya Deshatarine Vancha kalpatarubhyasya kripa sindubhya evacha paritanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langayate girim yatkripatamaham bande Shri Gurunitarinam yatkripatamaham bande Paramanandamadam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Katanchana smrte yasmin dushkaram sukaram bhavet Vismrite viparitam syat Shri Chaitanyam namamitam. So far we've been seeing how Maharaj Yudhishthira has been observing that Arjuna is exhibiting something very uncharacteristic of him. He is lamenting. He's lost his bodily luster. He seems to be very sad. He seems to be in some kind of lamentation or some kind of a distress, something which is unusual for Arjuna. Now, from an external perspective, this may appear very similar to what happens when someone in the material world loses someone. Then they apparently exhibit a similar kind of symptom. So what is the difference between what Arjuna is experiencing and what an ordinary conditioned soul experiences? Externally they appear very similar. So in the material world, our heart feels vacant, and all these symptoms begin to manifest due to our ignorance of Krishna. So because of the ignorance of Krishna, all these different materially inauspicious things manifest. Of course, Prabhupada says there's nothing called materially auspicious and inauspicious. Everything is inauspicious. But these signs of lamentation, loss of bodily luster, all these different things become prominent when one engages in materialistic activities, and then one encounters some loss of someone in material life. So there, the vacancy of the heart is due to ignorance of Krishna. Here, the vacancy of heart that Arjuna is feeling is due to love. There is vacancy of heart due to ignorance, and then there is vacancy of heart due to love. So first of all, how can we say that a pure devotee can experience vacancy of heart? Because in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, we quote this very often, we teach people this thing, the conditioned souls, we teach them this, that Yomam pashyati sarvatra sarvam mai pashyati tasyaham na pranashyami sacha mena pranashyati. Which means, Krishna says, for one who sees me everywhere, one who sees everything in me, I am never lost to him, nor is he ever lost to me. So, if that is what Krishna is teaching, then we may wonder why Krishna is saying that a pure devotee sees Krishna everywhere and sees everything in me. I'm never lost to him. He's never lost to me. So why is Arjuna feeling this vacancy of the heart? Is it because he forgot what Krishna taught in the Bhagavad Gita? Did he forget it? Is that why he's feeling vacant in the heart? So how do we understand it? Generally, sometimes I used to ask, in my initial days of Krishna consciousness, I used to ask this question, how to understand this? So the standard reply that I would get to is, this is a higher stage. But then the still question remains, okay, one is lower, higher, but how do you reconcile it? How do we reconcile that? So is he not seeing Krishna? Or, yes, it's a higher stage. What exactly is going on there? So finally, I found the answer when Prabhupada answers this question very nicely. Not the specific question, but he brings up a point very nicely. He says, just like a mother, when a mother, she loves her child. So when the child goes to school, the mother looks at the shoes of the child. So when she looks at the shoes of the child, she remembers the child and feels separation from the child. So because of her bond of love, because of her seeing something which belongs to the object of her love, she feels separation. She feels that vacancy. Oh, my son has gone to school. She feels that because of seeing. So this is what happens with the pure devotee. That because they have developed their love for Krishna, so when they see everything in relation to the Lord. Just like Prabhupada gave the example of the mother seeing the shoes of the child. So like that, a pure devotee, when he looks at everything in this material world, she sees that everything is part of Krishna. The devotee sees everything is part of Krishna. And because of seeing everything is part of Krishna, they feel vacancy in the heart. They feel that separation. So karmis, they feel vacancy of heart because of ignorance of Krishna. Whereas a pure devotee feels vacancy of heart due to seeing everything as Krishna. That is a development of love. And so Caitanya Mahaprabhu says, Yugayitam nimeshena chakshusha pravartayitam shunyayitam jagat sarvam govinda virahename. So feeling that separation from Krishna is feeling vacant. And he says even a moment seems like 12 years. Just a moment seems like 12 years. So they've got so much attachment to Krishna that a moment is seeming like 12 years. Now, when that separation intensifies, it becomes madness. So then we see Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he sees the sand dunes in Jagannath Puri, he thinks it's the Govardhan hill and he runs towards the sand dunes. Similarly, when he sees the sea, he thinks it's Yamuna and he goes and jumps into the sea. And then we know that story where the fisherman catches Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. How fortunate that fisherman must have been, because it's a sinful life to lead a fisherman's life. But Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is so kind that when the fisherman in that pastime, when he caught him with his net, the moment he held the net, he saw Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he became ecstatic with love of Godhead. So that is what happens when love intensifies. It becomes madness. Similarly, we see when Krishna leaves the gopis during the rasa dance, the gopis become mad. So this madness is a characteristic of love, which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu exhibited it fully manifests that ecstasy. When, for example, when the fisherman saw Lord Chaitanya in his net, he thought it's a ghost because he was so long, elongated, and the bones were disjoint, and he thought it's a ghost, but at the same time he was shivering, so he thought it must be definitely a ghost. Why am I shivering? Why am I
feeling this kind of a weird feeling. Of course, it's not a negative feeling. It is a positive feeling. But nevertheless, he was so disoriented by what he saw. In a positive sense, disoriented. So, that is the madness of ecstasy, of love of God. So, several places, Prabhupada mentions that the Krishna consciousness movement is meant for becoming mad after Krishna. So usually in the material world, madness is considered very undesirable. Madman is the last thing that is desirable, madman or woman. So when someone asks us, what are you trying to become? The members of the Krishna consciousness movement. And if we say we are trying to become mad men and mad women, people will think we are crazy. If we are able to give that answer, that means we understood the philosophy. That our philosophy is that we are meant to become mad after Krishna. We are supposed to become mad men and mad women. So, first of all, that is a very exalted stage. First of all, to come to that stage, we have to go through some steps. First step is, like when we were all drowning in this material world, or when we were all lost, how did we, first of all, Bhagavatam says that that body which has not received the dust, the second canto, here what the Bhagavatam explains, that that body which has not received the dust from the lotus feet of the Lord is as good as a dead body. So unless one receives the mercy of a pure devotee, so the world is filled with walking dead bodies. In fact, let me just, Prabhupada's translation is very interesting there. Let me just read that translation instead of paraphrasing it. It's very beautiful to read that translation. This is from 2.3.23. Jivan chavo bhagavatangri renum na jatumartyo abhilabhetayastu Shri Vishnu padya manujas tulasyaha shvasan chavo yastu na veda gandham. Translation: the person who has not at any time received the dust of the feet of the Lord's pure devotee upon his head is certainly a dead body, and the person who has never experienced the aroma of the tulsi leaves from the lotus feet of the Lord is also a dead body, although breathing. So Prabhupada writes a very long and beautiful purport there, where he says that unless one receives the mercy of the pure devotee, mercy is not just received only through taking the dust. That's one of the methods, but Prabhupada in the translation explains that the mercy of the pure devotee is received through the ear, by hearing what they have to say and trying to follow their instructions and trying to please them. As Prithu Maharaj explains in the 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, that when the pure devotees speak, their words are saturated with the saffron dust of the lotus feet of the Lord. And so when they speak, they transmit this saffron dust from the lotus feet of the Lord that enters through our ears and goes into the heart. And because it is the saffron dust from the lotus feet of the Lord, it purifies the heart. So this is the process where dead bodies, heart has stopped functioning. So when the heart has stopped functioning, so when we hear from the pure devotee, then we are revived, then we come to life. So, and when we come to life, what are we supposed to do? We have to sustain our life. So how do we sustain our life? By the process of bhakti. But one very important thing is there. Apart from chanting Shravanam Kirtanam, there's one very important thing. How to maintain our life. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says that one who has life, pran hetu se prachar. So one who has life, he will preach. He will preach. One who does not preach is a dead body. So we have been given this life. We have been infused with life. So therefore, it is our duty to infuse others with life. This is the point of the Krishna consciousness movement. Because if we read Prabhupada's books, it becomes very clear what are we actually supposed to be doing. So Prabhupada explains, every day just now we finish Guru Puja. We sing very exuberantly, very enthusiastically we sing, Namaste Saraswate Deve, Gauravani Pracharine, Nirvishesha Shunyavadi, Pashyate Deshatarine. Namaste Saraswate Deve. Prabhupada explains this. What is the meaning of Saraswate Deve? Saraswata means a follower of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. So Prabhupada says in the Caitanya Charitamrita, he identifies us as Saraswatas, which means the members, he says very clearly, the members of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness are Saraswatas, means followers of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. Then he says, what do the Saraswatas do? I mean, why is he referring to us as Saraswatas? Why not Rupanugas? Yes, we are for Rupanugas, but within the Rupanugas, we specifically follow Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. And what is that specific thing to the Krishna consciousness movement? He says two things. One is to spread the cult of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. And then he says to fight with the impersonalists and voidists, to oppose them. So we are not practicing Krishna Bhakti just for ourselves. We are practicing Krishna Bhakti and preaching. Of course, if we do not know what is Krishna Bhakti, how are we going to preach it? So that's a given, that one cannot spread the movement of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu without understanding what the movement is. That's a given, without practicing. So that's a given. So we practice Krishna consciousness and we preach Krishna consciousness. Without preaching, we are dead. We cannot be called Saraswatas. We are so we should go by our definitions. So moment we are not preaching, then we know that something is wrong with us. We are sick. We may be in the process of dying. We have to be careful. So we have to be always constantly in the fire of that preaching spirit. Prabhupada said, Prabhupada's exhibition of madness was this. Like Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was running into the Yamuna and falling into running into the sea, thinking it to be Yamuna and falling into the sea. But Prabhupada's vision of madness was, he said, I want to have the benediction of dying on the battlefield like Arjuna. That was Prabhupada's vision of madness. So there is one passage, I think this is in Hong Kong, where he's being driven in a car and he sees a hotel. It's actually Continental Hotel. But Prabhupada reads it as Chintamani. He said, is that Chintamani? Is it says Chintamani? So Prabhupada's vision was he would tour the cities and think how to deliver the conditioned souls. That was his form of madness. Like if you actually examine his life, especially before he went to the West, it was like total absorption. All kinds of things happened to him. He was gored by a cow. He did not have money even to buy dhoti. The same Prabhupada who ran a very big business. Lucknow, he invested 40,000 rupees those days in the business. Finally, he did not even have money to buy dhoti. And then he's lying on Delhi streets in the summer, gored by a cow. And then he's also falling unconscious in the summer heat. Extreme difficulty. I mean, you can see, unless a person, like there's this Jain who is to print Prabhupada's books in Delhi, he says, I just could not understand what keeps him going, What keeps him going? Because it's the most difficult. He would come to Mr. Jain without eating breakfast every day morning. And Mr. Jain had the good fortune of actually, he was a very nice person. He actually used to feed Prabhupada breakfast. What great fortune. Like that fisherman who, of course, Mr. Jain was not doing some sinful activity. But the point is that what great fortune that a pure devotee walks into your shop every day and you get the opportunity to feed him. So, what was my line of thought? Pardon? What was I trying to say? Pardon? Yeah. So Mr. Jain could see this is a very unusual person. He's not using any rationality or any logic. If you look at it logically, I mean, nobody would do these kind of things. I mean, with so much difficulty. Why is he doing it? He's driven by that certain sense of madness. That sense of madness is to try to follow his spiritual master. He was absorbed in that. Like Prabhupada says, he got that inspiration from Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's purport to Vyavasayatmika Buddhi verse in the Bhagavad Gita, 2nd chapter, where Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, one should make the words of the spiritual master one's life and soul, and one should carry that out. So Srila Prabhupada made that his goal, and he carried out the mission of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So that is the kind of madness that Srila Prabhupada exhibited, that madness of trying to follow his Guru Maharaj at all times, in all places, in all circumstances, no matter what. In fact, you can see in the Lilamrita that as the difficulty increases, his determination also increases. It's quite remarkable, actually. I mean, the more it becomes difficult, the more he's determined, the more he's doing more. I mean, he does more and more and more, the more the difficulties come. So only someone who's on that platform of love of Godhead can exhibit that kind of a symptom of, I mean, pushing against all odds and going stronger and stronger and stronger. And today we see the result that so many of us who were dead have been infused with life by Srila Prabhupada through his books. The saffron, when we hear the Bhagavatam every day, the saffron dust particles are entering our ear from the lotus feet of the Lord, and it's purifying us. It's purifying us so that that is the power of a pure devotee. So we can consider ourselves rightly situated on the path if we are also developing that sense of madness for both practicing and preaching Krishna consciousness. So we should not be thinking in terms of let me become normal. We should be thinking of let me become abnormal. When will everything in this material world become insignificant, and I will only engage in the mission of Srila Prabhupada. Our problem is we think, when I say our, I'm not saying everyone in this room, I'm just generally saying that. Our problem is we think things in this material world, this is important, this is good, we have all these conceptions of relativity. So we still not come to the stage of madness. For materially, madman means what? For him, everything is, there's no concept of good, bad, everything is just, those concepts have dissolved, right? Material madness. Similarly, spiritual madness means all these, we are not anymore entrapped by duality. We are no more entrapped by duality, but rather we are, as Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says, when he sends preachers to the West, or in his talks he says that our duty is to simply give forth music at the lotus feet of Sri Guru. This is our mission, that we should try to simply please Srila Prabhupada. So he says, so we sing every day morning, Yasya Prasadat Bhagavad Prasado. And as I've mentioned this before, that this is unique to ISKCON, the Samsara prayers for Mangalarati. The Gaudiya Maths don't sing this prayer. They have other prayers like Vibhavari Shesha and other prayers. But this is Prabhupada's unique thing, that he established this as the Mangalarati prayer for ISKCON. Similarly, Guru Puja every day. This is Prabhupada's unique thing for ISKCON. So we can see Prabhupada set up this whole Krishna consciousness movement with that mission very clearly. That we know nothing. Guru Mukha Padmavakya Chitete Koriya Aikya. So whatever we arna kori homane asha. So whatever we do, we are focused. We are focused on the mission. We are focused on being Saraswatas. So the moment we are focused on being Saraswata, we are sure to succeed. Not 99.9%, 100% we can succeed in attaining love of Godhead. When that Krishna knows, but we can be sure of this fact. It's not 99.9%, it's 100% we can attain love of Godhead. So if we have life, we should give life. That is the highest form of charity. In this verse, so now coming to this particular verse, I was speaking about the general context of the chapter. In this particular verse, Prabhupada is speaking about a rich man or a Kshatriya. They are visited sometimes people in need of money. It's saying that a wealthy man has to give out money. That's the purpose of wealth. So there is one lecture which I want to read some excerpt from a lecture which Prabhupada gave it's a very important lecture where he speaks about the Krishna consciousness movement and what we do in terms of charity. So Prabhupada says, this is a lecture on the 19th of March 1971 in Mumbai, India. We can serve everyone and benefit ourselves by contributing in some way to the Krishna consciousness movement. Then he says, the life-giving movement for human society. The life-giving movement. This is the point that I was trying to make also, that unless we have life, how are you going to give life? So when he says life-giving movement, which means that we are supposed to preach. This is our process. He goes on, etavad janma safalyam dehinam iha dehishu pranayararte dhiya vacha. Famous verse. Shreya archanam sadha. It is the duty of every living being to perform welfare activities for the benefit of others with his life, wealth, intelligence and words. Now, notice what it said here. It is the duty of every living being to perform welfare activities for the benefit of others with his life, wealth, intelligence and words. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 22, 35. And Prabhupada says, among this category, life, wealth, intelligence and words, how do we perform welfare activity for others? We perform welfare activity for others with our life. And Prabhupada explains this a little later on. He gives the example of Bali Maharaj. Okay. So, this is very interesting the way Prabhupada describes this. Not only is Krishna supplying, he says, but he is also begging. As Vamanadev, he became a beggar before Bali Maharaj. Bali Maharaj had conquered everywhere, including the heavenly planets, and all the demigods were very much perturbed. So Krishna as Vamanadev went to Bali Maharaj as a beggar. Maharaj, you are very charitable. Will you kindly give me 3 steps of land? So he's going and asking charity from Bali Maharaj. He's a king, right? So he's supposed to give some. This is an asset of the king. The land is an asset of the king. So Prabhupada is mentioning in this purport that when someone goes and asks for charity, he's supposed to give. King is supposed to give. So Bali Maharaj is an ideal example of a king. So Maharaj, you are very charitable. Will you kindly give me 3 steps of land? So Krishna, although he is the maintainer of everyone, sometimes takes the part of a beggar. He's not a beggar. But why does he beg? That's the point. Beautiful point Prabhupada makes. He's not a beggar, but he begs to benefit the charitable. So that's why he's begging, And whoever gives in charity is benefited. Bali Maharaj gave everything to Vamanadev. This is called Sarvasvatma Nivedanam, offering everything to the service of Krishna. Offering everything to the Lord, Different devotees display different types of service to Krishna out of the 9 kinds of devotional service listed by Prahlad Maharaj. Bali Maharaj cultivated, I'm skipping a little, Bali Maharaj cultivated Atma Nivedanam, giving everything to Krishna, whatever he had. So then Prabhupada says, so he goes on, Yat karoshi yad ashnashi yad juhoshi dadasi yat tapasyasi kaunteya tat kurushva madarpanam. Whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer or give away, or whatever austerities you perform, do that, O son of Kunti, as an offering to me. Everyone has some disposition to give in charity. Then he speaks, because they're all businessmen actually. He's addressing businessmen. That's why I wanted to bring this verse, this talk, because this is talking about rich men. Because today you don't have kings, you only have rich men. So then he says, everyone has some disposition to give in charity. Perhaps you're all businessmen and you have a separate fund for charity. To give in charity is a natural inclination for everyone. Krishna says, if you're inclined to give in charity, better to give it to me. So here is a chance, the Krishna consciousness movement, pranayar arte diya vacha. Someone should dedicate his life and someone should give in charity to his best capacity. If he has no possibility of dedicating his life or giving in charity, then he can give his intelligence. Ultimately, he can give his words also. This Krishna conscious movement is very important. So somebody should dedicate his life, somebody should dedicate his wealth, somebody should dedicate his intelligence, and somebody should dedicate his words. Suppose someone cannot dedicate his life, has no money, then he can give us some use of his intelligence by suggesting. If you go to such and such person, or if you do like this, if you make your plan like this for pushing your Krishna consciousness, that is also service, intelligence. And if he has no money, no intelligence and cannot dedicate his life, then he can give his words. How he can do that? By repeating Krishna's words. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Sarva dharmam pariteja mamekam sharanam vraja, aham tam sarva papebhyo mokshashyami ma suchaha. Abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear. You can say to someone, I have come to you, sir, tell you that you should surrender to Krishna. So, please surrender to Krishna. Words involve no expenditure. Or you can say, please chant Hare Krishna. I think it is very easy. There is no expenditure, there is no loss. So, Prabhupada is saying nobody is exempt from giving charity. Everybody has to do charity. The members of the Krishna conscious movement can do it by giving their whole life. He says this is a life-giving movement. So, we are trying to give life to others. So, by giving your own life, the Prabhupada says if you have money, give money. Otherwise, use your intelligence. If you have nothing, at least give your words. So, it is a duty of everyone to perform charity. Then he says, I am so obliged to you that you are trying your best to push this movement. And at the same time, I must say that this movement is very, very important. This is the life-giving movement for human society. That's a fact. It is not a bogus, manufactured, concocted movement. It is authorized. Krishna says, Sarva dharman pariteja mamekam sharanam vraja, 1866. And we are teaching this philosophy throughout the world. And from all parts of the world, we are getting devotees who are completely surrendered to Krishna. Thank you very much. So Prabhupada ends the lecture like that. So we can see that this Krishna consciousness movement, we should never forget that it's not just practice of Krishna consciousness that is important, but not just practice, but we should also preach. Otherwise, our very identity is Saraswata. How can we even call ourselves Saraswatas if we do not preach the Krishna consciousness movement? So our madness will come. Prabhupada said sometimes once when devotee asked that he was talking about samadhi. So Prabhupada said, preach now, samadhi will come later. So our preaching comes from our samadhi comes from preaching. In fact, preaching is samadhi. Vaisheshika Prabhu has written a book called Our Family Business. No. So where he compares book distribution to samadhi, which is a fact that actually when we distribute books, those of you who have distributed books will definitely have this experience. When we distribute a book, suddenly we are unaware of what we are in terms of our material identity, material designation, everything suddenly collapses. We are only thinking of Prabhupada, how to please him, how to benefit this conditioned soul. Initially we may be a little bit hesitant when we take a book and go out onto the street, but once we get into it, we begin to experience that madness slowly begins to hit us. We forget who we are, what is our identity. We just get absorbed in that process of book distribution. That's why it is said that book distribution is an activity of samadhi. And why it produces instant samadhi? Like you have this in this material world, no? You have this called instant everything they want. They want everything instant. So you want instant samadhi, take a book and distribute it. It's because that it is not just the madness of preaching is inferior to the madness of what Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu was experiencing. Both madnesses are identical. It's not that the madness of preaching is less identical than the madness of what the gopis were feeling or what Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu was feeling. Because in the Gopi Gita, the gopis sing, that Tavakatamritam. So in that verse, they sing that Bhuvi Granantiye Bhuridajana. Those who are distributing your glories, they are the most charitable. Now, our goal is to become like the gopis. Okay, we are trying to think of them, right? We want to become like them. We want to aspire in their footsteps. But what are they thinking actually? They are thinking of the preachers. It's an identical activity. In their madness, what are they thinking? They're thinking of the preachers. They're thinking how merciful they are. They're distributing the message of Krishna. Because they're mad after Krishna, they're thinking of the preachers. So it's an identical activity. That is why book distribution, like during the time of Srila Prabhupada, Rameshwar Prabhu, he gave a class in which he mentioned that when we talk about Nikunja Yuno Ratikeli Siddhai, book distribution is the external manifestation of Nikunja Yuno Ratikeli Siddhai. There's one Mataji who thought that this was probably a speculation. So she wrote to Srila Prabhupada, and Prabhupada replied by saying he has understood correctly. Because there's no difference between Lord Chaitanya's internal and external. Internally he came for the purpose of relishing the mood of the gopis. Externally he came to preach the Sankirtan movement. But the Lord is absolute. There's no difference between his internal and external. So the Sankirtan movement is the external manifestation of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's, he is the external manifestation of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's internal mood. So they're identical. So that's why when we try to take a book and distribute it, instantly you get that feeling of samadhi. They say, stay high forever. So the book distributors cannot usually give a book distribution. They just go on and on and on and on. Okay, so I think I'll stop here with this thing that our aim is to become mad after Krishna. And we can become mad after Krishna when we fully absorb ourselves in practice and preaching. Okay, so if there are any comments or questions? Yes, Vijay. Pardon? No. Prabhupada is not talking in terms of what is higher or what is lower. He's saying that, of course, the highest is to surrender your life. But whatever you have, you do. That's what he's trying to say. So, if someone has money, why can't he give money? Why should you keep money with you? You're giving the money to spread the Krishna conscious movement, right? For preaching, you're giving it. So, you should be connected to preaching somehow or the other. Still, a businessman is giving, how can we, building a temple is also actually preaching. How are we going to preach without a temple? And how is that going to happen if a businessman doesn't give money? That's also preaching. Yeah.
Even in the 14th chapter, mode of ignorance, that when the people, that is madness, those who are in the mode of ignorance, actually that is madness is the thing. So would you like to talk something about it? Because I feel that everybody is normal, that madness, okay, somebody is lusty, we can make out. Somebody is angry, we can make out. But how do you designate that he is mad? So that becomes a little difficult to understand.
Madness is an absorption. Okay, so for example, let's say you watch a child. Okay, if you see a child whose most of his time is into virtual reality and games, would you consider the child normal? No. Abnormal, right? Why? Because you are in a higher platform. You can clearly see it. If the child is constantly like people die actually due to gaming. Gaming has become a very big thing in the world. Even adults are dying due to gaming because they're so absorbed in the gaming that they forget who they are, what they are, and all that. Okay, so that is exactly the situation of people in this material world. Everybody is completely crazy. They're completely forgotten Krishna, and in the process they're dying, birth and death, birth and death. This is complete madness. It's complete madness. So that is how we are supposed to look at it. That the very fact that someone is not remembering Krishna means that they're completely lost. They're completely lost. Now within that there may be categories. But that's why Prabhupada writes in the Krishna book, if you look at the, I think it comes under Krishna, Vasudeva promising Kamsa. I don't recollect where it comes. Anyway, but Prabhupada mentions there that in the material world, you have ignorance, passion and goodness, right? So he says that ignorance is like the base color. Like you have three colors. The base color, I mean like three, for example, you're mixing colors, right? Everything is based on, it is the base paint. In that you can mix goodness and passion. But the base paint is this thing, what do you call, ignorance. So the material life is based on ignorance. The very fact that, so within that, the mode of ignorance may be prominent. That's a different thing. But the very fact that someone has a material body means it is based on ignorance. That itself is one madness. And then it is a little bit another level of madness that we are externally manifest, which we are externally seeing. But whereas for a pure devotee, the fact that someone is materially absorbed itself is madness. Within that, if a person is a little bit more mad, okay, he's a little bit more mad, that's all. But the very fact that someone has got a material body means madness. We are not forced to think, we think we are the body. Yeah. Yes, so the spirit soul, by absorbing ourselves in matter, so then they think they are the body, they do all these things. It's all voluntary, everything is voluntary. So we have become voluntarily mad. Whereas the Goswamis also, you have Srinivasacharya singing, Radha Kunda Tate Kalinda Tanaya Tire Chavamshi Vate Premonmada Vasha Dashesha Dashaya Krastau Pramatto Sada. What's it? Premonmada Vasha. Due to being Premonmada, madness due to love. Vasha Ashedashya Krastau Pramatto Sada. Bhāvabhibhuto Muda Vande Rupa Sanatano Raghujugo Sri Gopala. So they are also mad. They are also mad. I mean, what kind of madness? Premonmada. So that is our goal. So that madness means you cannot think of anything other than Krishna. Madness of the material world means you cannot think of anything other than matter. So they are two opposites. Yes, Vijay.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandavat Pranam. Prabhuji, that you were talking of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and it is a raganuga, because a spontaneous love for the Lord, and that we don't have because we are practicing Vaidhi Bhakti and lot of contamination we have. So that Vaidhi Bhakti can lead to Raganuga Bhakti in future? That is my question.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, you're practicing Vaidhi Bhakti under the instruction of a pure devotee who is a resident of Vrindavan, which is Prabhupada. All members of the Krishna consciousness movement, their leader is Prabhupada, right? He is a resident of Vrindavan. So, and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says that either you can have an external guru who will lead you on the path of Raganuga Bhakti, physically present external guru, or this holy name itself is Nija Sarva Shakti. It has all the potency. So, by chanting the holy name, Nama, Rupa, Guna and Leela will get in that order. Nama, Rupa, Guna, Leela. In that order, it will progressively manifest in the heart of the chanter.
It is possible in the future.
Yes,
we can.
Yes. It has to happen, in fact, in the sense that by chanting, you're supposed to realize the Nama, that slowly the Nama, Rupa, the form of the Lord begins to manifest, Guna, the qualities, and Leela. Eventually, that stage has to come.
Thank you so much.
It's okay. So I think if there are no more questions, we'll stop here. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.